I was just so sad. So I don't think anybody knows this, but what I did was I dropped the kids off and get back into my PJs, sleep until it was time to pick up my kids, wash up my face, put on my clothes. Hi kids, how are you? How was your school day? And that was my cycle.
Let's Talk DXB. Real conversations by real people. Tess, thank you so much for coming in. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I didn't think I'd ever get to a point where I say therapy so much and so openly, but I'm learning the value of it, obviously going through my journey and my story. And Let's Talk is definitely about knowledgeable conversations. So having you, such a qualified and leading psychologist in the studio, I'm very grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me, Sharon.
Thank you. So I always start with the guests because I always like to learn more about them, their background. And I think particularly for your job and what you do, I think it takes a special person. So I'd like to learn a bit more about Tess and what got you into being a psychologist.
So I arrived in Dubai 9 years ago, and I was the trailing spouse, by which I mean I followed my husband here, and I had 2 kids as well. I arrived here and I was very excited. You know, I don't have to work. My husband's got a fantastic job. I just have to be a mum. And I really was looking forward to that downtime. Got my nails done, got my hair done, all that lovely stuff. But I felt it wasn't satisfying me. Okay. And in that time, I was trying to find my people, my tribe. And coming to Dubai, it's just a melting pot of different types of personalities, different cultures. So I am the friendly type. So I would say, hi, my name's Tess. Do you want to be my friend? Or words to that effect. And I made a lot of friends, or so I thought, and it wasn't really what I expected. And some of these people had different cultures to me and different values and so on and so forth. And I found myself withdrawing because I didn't feel connected. Right. So what happened in that 1 year, first year in Dubai, I started eating a lot. Right. The Dubai stone, as we call it.
I'm still trying to shift mine.
We all are, right? So the Dubai stone became the Dubai 2-3 stone for me because I was eating my feelings. My background, I'm a biochemist by trade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I hated it. So I retrained. Then I went into public health, worked as a public health consultant in the NHS, and that's when I came over. But I didn't really know what to do with myself. I was mum, took the kids to school, all that kind of stuff. And I was just so sad. So I don't think anybody knows this, but what I did was I dropped the kids off and get back into my PJs, sleep until it was time to pick up my kids, wash up my face, put on my clothes. Hi kids, how are you? How was your school day? And that was my cycle. And I was like, this is just ridiculous.
You never vocalised it to anybody?
Well, I looked for groups to join and I didn't find any groups. And because I didn't have my people, everyone had a veneer. Oh, Dubai's fine. Look at me, I'm great. Let's go brunching. Yeah. I'm from London, and brunching wasn't a big thing when I was growing up, but certainly in my late 20s. Yeah. So this was a new concept, to drink your feelings, and I didn't want to do that. So I just got terribly depressed, I'm going to be honest. And as someone who worked in the mental health sphere, I was like, this is not good. Went to Singapore for a wedding, and my father-in-law fat-shamed me. And he said, oh, Tess, I haven't seen you in a while. You've put on about 60 kg since we last met. And I was like, no, Dad, it's not 60, it's 63 kg.
So you just tried to joke it off.
Joked it off, but it impacted me because nobody could see that I was in pain. I was sad. So I said to myself, I need to enjoy my holiday, come back, and I joined the gym just to kind of help with my mental health because it only takes 15 minutes and 9 seconds to elevate your mood when you exercise.
Really?
Yep.
Okay,
so I had that in mind every time I'd go to the gym, although that was hard in itself. Then I went home after my year 1 of Dubai. Yeah. When I went home, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to have some sort of purpose. So I sat with myself and said, is this what I want going forward? Prior to coming back to London in the first year, Sophia, my daughter, said to me, Mummy, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I was like, oh, proud moment. And I said, why, darling? Why do you want to be like me? She said, because you sit at home all day.
Oh.
So that's what she was thinking of
saw,
me.
yes.
Monkey see, monkey do. And I said, I do not want this for my daughter. I've worked extremely hard. My parents, immigrants, you know, the whole story about coming to the UK, you know, finding a job, saving all that money for their children, their education. And I said, no, this is not going to be me. So I sat with myself and said, what am I going to do? Okay, I've got counselling qualifications. If there are women who are feeling like me, why don't I set up like a business of sorts to help individuals? And that's how my business was born. So year 2 in Dubai, I was like, right, get my business license and start talking to women. And it was word of mouth. And then I did a coaching qualification. Amazing. So then I became a coach, and then I went on to do a psychology degree, and then I started practicing psychology. The women came to see me, and they felt an affinity because I could connect and I could empathize truly, because I felt so alone, so sad. And when they felt that there was someone on their side who wasn't judging them, truly wasn't judging them, just wanted to serve and help, they felt comfortable with sending their husbands to me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because they didn't feel threatened by me. Tess is not going to steal their husband, all that kind of stuff, which is lurking in a lot of women's heads, you know. And then the men would come and they would be sitting like this, well, I don't want to be in therapy. And I framed it as coaching.
Good idea.
Business coaching. So I would use business examples and frame it back into their personal, emotional lives. And they thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. When they quite enjoyed that, my reputation grew. Other men came to see me. Then they said, Tess, why don't you come into my organisation? I think there is a spot for you.
Oh, wow.
And that's how my business wing grew.
It's amazing.
So that's how I am, who I am.
Who you are, And you know, it's so amazing that it's come from purpose and quite, and I'm figuring it out now. I mean, Let's Talk was definitely birthed in a place of like not sleeping, weeping, disappointment, all those factors, anxiety, to the point where I'm surprised that I'm sat here. But when you can find your purpose and elevate and even just push yourself, because it takes a lot of effort just to want to be able to get up and do anything in that headspace, to then build something so authentic, and that will resonate. So when you said women were coming to you because they knew that you came from a place that either was quite similar to them or you're coming from a very authentic place. So that is just fantastic.
I think there was an incredible sadness that I had, and I wanted to lift that by serving. When I was at secondary school, we had a logo, an emblem, and it said Servium. That means I shall serve. So it's a St. Angela's motto. And I was thinking about that quite recently, because I think my whole purpose has been to serve, and it has been misconstrued because I would really try and help, and sometimes it wasn't wanted. So that's how I started pulling back a little bit. I didn't offer my help unless somebody asked me. So I knock, but I don't go where if somebody doesn't open the door, then I don't enter.
And you also have the talent to sense that, because, you know, some people don't. they'll keep on pushing. So I think it's a talent to be able to know where it's your place to kind of go there because they're allowing you, or just to kind of step back and wait for that person to invite you in and try again. I think that's a blessing.
I think what we need to do is read people's body language, because 70% of our communication is non-verbal. So coming from London in the 80s, where there was a lot of biases and racism and all that kind of stuff, all the challenges that I grew up with, brown parents, immigrant parents, expectations, reality, all that kind of stuff, I kind of honed in my skills of like reading, engaging people, if I should ask this or if I shouldn't ask this. And it's a skill set that I kind of had, but I suppressed. And doing therapy, I am able to draw it out and kind of gauge if someone is ready or open to talk about whatever it is that's on their mind.
I want to touch on loneliness, because I've mentioned this before, and the perception of Dubai is you're in Dubai. Dubai is a place where you can socialise, for sure. As you know, you talk about brunches and there's drinks and there's always something to do. But in terms of really finding your person to say, oh, I think I'm going to file for divorce, there's not many places you can go where you feel safe to have that. Or even just having genuine friendships here. You hear so many different dynamics about friendships and stories that I'm still like, what? Someone did that? So what are you seeing when it comes to this loneliness? Like a lot of your clients actually coming in to say, I feel like I don't have anybody here. Because I say this to people and they're like, no, there's always people around. They don't understand what that means.
But they don't frame it as loneliness.
Okay, yes.
They come in and say, I don't have many friends. I don't know what I'm doing with myself. Loneliness is the lack of connection or meaningful connection. So what we do, if we go to any environment, we want to fit in because we have a herd mentality.
Yes.
So what do we do when we fit in? We adapt and become the cohort so that we don't become the outlier and discarded. But when we do that, we're not really being authentic to ourselves. We don't belong. When we are connected to people, we belong and we're authentic. We say what we want and mean what we say, and we are accepted for who we are. There are challenges, of course, but ultimately those people love us because we are unapologetically ourselves. What I found personally when I came to Dubai, it was very difficult for me to be me because people were reinventing themselves, and I feel had kind of lost their identity because they wanted to be this Dubai, whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I started Let's Talk, because it's around authenticity, because I think it's very hard to find that in people. Or you're told to, Dubai is such a great place. I mean, I've been here for 10 years, but it's very shiny. It's, there's a lot of perfectionism. You have to be perfect. Life has to seem good.
Perceived
perfectionism. And people don't, and I understand no one's going to openly put on social media if they've been up all night crying. It's very rare that you get, people's truths behind closed doors. So Let's Talk was very much having open and honest conversations. And it's hard, right? Being vulnerable. I'm still learning. I would never have thought that I would be doing something like this, but I see the value in it as well, and to allow the community to know that it's okay. And there's other people that it's not great at the moment, but also other people that have overcome as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think people often associate vulnerability with failing.
Yeah, true.
And my opinion is we have to fail all the time so we grow.
True.
And we evolve and become the people that we are meant to be. And it's only through falling down that we learn to get back up and not fall down in the same spot again. But if we try and suppress our vulnerability / failure, what happens is, how do we learn? We keep repeating the same mistakes again and again and get frustrated at the fact that we are doing it. So I say to all my clients, even my friends, that vulnerability is our greatest strength and asset. So when we embrace it, when we're at the bottom, we can look all the way up and see what we need to do to grow and develop. When we're at the top and we fall down, we can humble ourselves and learn, well, actually, that didn't really work. So what can I do differently? What do I need to introspect upon? What do I need to perhaps adapt and evolve so that I become that version that people enjoy being around? And also yourself, to sit with yourself and be happy and content.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot with failure. If I take my journey, the failure of my marriage not making it to the end, and we're not going to be 80 and watching our grandkids, and the disappointment of that failure is what gets me every time. I could be sitting working and it will just hit me that it didn't work. It didn't happen. So navigating that disappointment. I know we talked about this like off the cameras, but I'm still figuring out, how do you go about that? I mean, you would have also faced in life disappointment. Navigating that is really hard.
Yeah, I think the difficult thing about disappointment is how other people make you feel.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So from parents, uncles, aunties to friends. And when we have something that's burdening us and we feel sad about it, sometimes we don't share because we're afraid of other people's judgment.
True.
And that disappoints you as much as the actual disappointment.
Yeah, true.
So what is really important is to look at what our expectations / requirements are compared to the reality, because there is a big gap between that, and that's where the disappointment lives. In order to overcome that, or to even prevent that, it is to have honest, open communication. Now, communication is not just talking.
Right.
Communication is about understanding what each other's values and beliefs are, and not just saying, okay, I agree, but what does it actually mean? It's the hard talk. Not many of us actually have the hard talk because it's difficult, and we assume and we kind of sideswipe and go, yeah, it's fine, but is it really?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is that hard talk. And I'm learning to be able to vocalize more. A lot of, I think, again, I always go back to your upbringing. A lot of my upbringing, I'm quite a conforming person, if I'm quite honest. So do as I'm told. And it works quite well for parents if you've got a child that is, and my son is a bit like that actually. So I do try and be mindful that he doesn't always need to conform to what I'm saying, let him have a viewpoint and an opinion at quite a small age. But I think I was not very good at vocalizing. I don't like this. And it could be small things. I'll just do it, keep the peace and just do it. As an adult, I'm having to like unpick that. And therapy as an adult is tough. Like it's hard because I'm like, I don't know why this has happened or why I've thought this way. And now I'm having to go through all of these years of learned behavior and unpick it and kind of rethink about things, which is so difficult.
And I think there's also an element of background anger.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Anger, I like to frame it as an iceberg. There's so many facets to anger: disappointment, humiliation, sadness, and the like. And when we can, or frustration when we can identify what it is that we are angry about, then we can really work on what has caused or triggered that.
Right.
Sometimes we can sit in a conversation and you feel like, oh, that's affected me in a certain way. It's because the other person has triggered something in you unbeknown that you haven't touched upon. So just going back to, how our parents have, you said you're a conformist. I was a conformist and I tried to be a conformist, but I had a mouth on me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And being brown and having a mouth on me, I got into all sorts of trouble, being shouted at. And, God bless my parents. They did what they thought was right at that time. But I knew I was an outlier. Right. I knew I was different. Right. I knew it was going to be different for me. I'm from East London.
Right, okay.
But I don't sound like an East Londoner.
No, definitely don't. Yeah.
So what I did from age 10 was like, I don't want to be typecast.
Right.
And I knew that from a very young age.
From such a young age?
Yes, because the school I was at, we had a lot of white and different nationalities who came in. And for me, that seemed like success because they're teaching and, they were well dressed and they lived in a posh part of London also, I thought back then. And I was like, I want that.
That's what I want.
So I started mimicking how they spoke.
Right.
And I noticed that they spoke a lot slower than my cohort. So I started doing that. I took an interest in English. And from there, I started to be different and act differently. And I became very lonely because I didn't have that connection because people were like, you're not one of us.
Yeah, I was going to say, how was that accepted like in your household with your cousins, with your siblings, with your community? Because quite easily you can get picked on at quite a young age because they're like, what are you doing? Like, why do you sound like this? Who are you trying to be? Who are you? That's quite hard at quite a young age.
Absolutely. And I looked very different as well. The curly frizzy hair and the glasses and the teeth and all. And I was smart as well. So it's just like, what is she? Exactly. What is she?
Yeah.
So I was quite quiet and I was quite sad. And I was like, you know what? I know I need to get to university. I need to get to university.
Yeah.
And that was my driver. I knew once I got out into the big world, I could make an impact.
Yes.
I didn't know what kind of impact, but I knew I could because I wanted to serve. I wanted to help. And I'm motivated by just supporting people and just drawing out that wonderfulness that we all have inside. Yes. So I think what I'm doing now is I'm living my purpose. And by living my purpose, I'm helping people to find their voice and their courage in a way that perhaps they never thought they could. Yeah. Because I ask the challenging questions. I'm not here to sugarcoat. I go straight in.
Yep.
There are many therapists out there who are like, oh, no, God, that's very sad. And I, although that is great to be empathetic, it's like, what do you do after that?
Correct.
Be empathetic, and what's the solution? How do I help you to help yourself? So I always say to my clients, I'm a conduit for you to get to point A to point B. Yeah. I'm not your crutch.
That's very talented. And as a therapist, I think it takes a special person because I'm an empath. So I would absorb, tell me your problem, we're going to fix it together. I want to help. I'm definitely a helper, but I don't know how to disconnect the emotions from it. I won't cry with you. Now, actually, I'm a lot more emotional. Before, I found it quite awkward just to hug, actually. And I think from upbringing, we went a huggy, kind of love you, kissy type family. So maybe that's where it's come from. Now I'm a lot more emotional and I'm enjoying it, actually. But yeah, in terms of disconnecting from that, because you would hear so many different extremes, you know, you'll see a lot of people, I'm sure, quite upset or quite angry or frustrated. How do you go home at night and not replay that? Like, how do you disconnect? What is your therapy in this role?
So I used to be one of those people who took on everyone's problems, and I'd go home, I'd be in the shower and I'd be like, oh, John, right, what can I do to help John? I wouldn't sleep because I'd wake up and go, okay, Fatima needs this, so what am I going to do? And I'd go down to my library and do my reading, and my husband would be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just need to do it. And I'd be so tired because I just wanted to help and support. And I got to a stage where I got terribly ill, actually, because I was so drained and I didn't know what it was. It's just physically and emotionally exhausted. The pain that I was taking, and I was in hospital, I was on a drip. 2 days I was in hospital. I came back, I was like, something's going to change. So I went to go and see my therapist.
Okay, good. Also, the therapists do have therapists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
And she told me about the bubbling up technique.
Right.
So I'm going to share that here.
Yeah, please.
Bubbling up technique is literally imagining a bubble around you, and this bubble is Teflon coated,
right,
and cobalt blue. Teflon is non-stick, and cobalt blue is soothing. So when anyone talks to you, it comes and it slides. It doesn't penetrate, not unless you allow it to. So you open it up for the people that matter.
Okay.
So my children, my best friends, my family, I open my heart and my mind. But for anybody else, I'm here to serve you, but I cannot allow you to penetrate me, because it's going to impact me in a negative way, and then I'm not going to be useful for anyone. I cannot pour from an empty cup.
Very true,
right? So by using this technique, it has helped me in such a profound manner, coupled with sage. So I do put sage.
Yeah, you do, yes, yep.
And I also exercise. So for me, exercising is my detox.
Right,
I go 6 times a week.
6 times, Tess?
6 times a week. And I don't enjoy it.
I was going to say, you must enjoy it.
No, I don't enjoy it. I do it because I know 15 minutes and 9 seconds into it, I will feel lighter and better for it. And I do it. And, you know, when I spoke earlier, I was quite big and quite fat because I was eating a lot. Because I was
so the weight was it,
so it started off like, you know, let me lose some weight. Now it's not about losing weight. It's about being strong. Strong in my mind, strong in my body, and being a fantastic role model for my children.
For your children.
And when my clients come to see me and they say, you know what, I just don't know what to do and I'm feeling sad, I say, get your body in shape, right? And in shape, be strong. Okay, so I always signpost them to people who I think are a good fit for them in terms of PTs and trainers. And once they do that, they get their bodies in check and they feel great. The dopamine and the endorphins are flowing, and then their mindset starts shifting because of the hard talk and the challenging questions.
So the physical side, I know I'm not there yet, but I know how important, because obviously I spent like the year and a half comfort eating, and for me, like, I've never been big, but in our family it is a trait. So if we don't watch what we eat, we can quickly put on weight. And I found the heaviest I felt, my skin, everything, I broke out in stress hives because, you know, all of the physical impact that stress and trauma and all of this can have. So in terms of now trying to shift to work on just feeling good for myself as well, I think as well, because there was a point where I didn't recognize myself. I've never put on so much weight so quickly, actually, and I couldn't find myself getting out of it. Like the food was literally soothing me for whatever, half an hour.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to do this because I'm stressed and I've got too many things to think about. But it's quite a slippery slope, actually.
Absolutely. And we use food, we use alcohol, we use sex, gambling, shopping, whatever the vices may be, as a form of numbing. Because we don't want to deal with whatever's going on, so we use that as an escape. When we recognize what we're doing, we can take ownership and then accountability, and we can choose every second. We have a choice, Sharon. It's a binary, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. But we have patterns from yesterday, yesteryear. And as a therapist, what I do with my clients from a corporate perspective and a personal perspective is to help them choose an alternative pathway, or give them at least the courage or the option to choose that. I'm very descriptive, not prescriptive, by which I mean I don't tell people what to do. What I do is offer them options. You see, I'm going to be a very small, fleeting part in people's lives. in 10 years' time, they probably think, oh, I remember going to see a therapist way back when, and she helped me with this. And so it should be.
Yeah.
So I try and equip my clients with tools that they can use forevermore, so they don't want to or need to come back to therapy. But if they do, it's for a top-up or to talk about a topic that they didn't cover in the first set of sessions.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I think also your therapist, obviously, is finding the right person for you is what I've learned as well. But therapy, the topic of therapy, because I think it's talked about a lot more now than obviously maybe 10 years ago or way back when, you know, when I was growing up. Therapy would be like, oh, is that person okay? Maybe, you know, there's something wrong with them.
A bit loopy.
You're a bit crazy. Yeah, sorry to say. And I know that's not the case, but I think, has that dynamic changed a bit more? I feel like maybe COVID spiked a lot more people needing therapy because we were daily hearing about deaths. People lost family members, friends. We're living in this crazy world. And I know companies like my company were more thinking about well-being, mental health. And I saw a lot more of that during COVID because the pandemic was insane. But through the years of, you know, doing what you do, is a dynamic on the word therapy seen as less scary now, or are people a bit more closed off to it still?
It depends on the individual. How I like to frame it is coaching.
Right, yes,
because there doesn't seem to be too much of a stigma attached to coaching, life coaching, and then they come in because my skill set is counselling and CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. When I come from a coaching perspective, depending on the client, they're more receptive and open to the conversation. And then I introduce elements of emotions and emotional intelligence and how it percolates through into their personal life. And then once that opening is there and the trust and rapport is there, it's that much easier to talk about it. But going back to the stigma, I think there is still a lot of stigma around mental health illnesses and feeling not well mentally, although it is diminishing slowly. But I think there are organizations and people in Dubai who are talking openly about it on TikTok, on Instagram, and it's making it more acceptable to seek support and help. And if there's one person in the circle of friends doing it and he or she shares, the other people are more likely to go, yeah, actually, maybe I should. What's the number? What's the number of that person? Let me go and talk. And that is how my business grew. It was just through word of mouth. You know, Sharon, I did not advertise one bit.
Really?
Nope, not one bit. It's only during COVID because I didn't have any clients.
Yeah, so you need,
that's when I built my website.
What?
Yeah. It was all word of mouth.
So all those years, just word of mouth?
Yeah, word of mouth. And people would come and see me, and, you know, the impact that they felt from the way that I was asking them questions, unpicking and unpacking in a non-judgmental way, in a safe manner, providing a safe space. I always say to my clients, this is my face, there's no Botox, right? I just don't react. Of course I laugh, but they start laughing, but it's true. It's just, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help you, to help yourself, truly. So, and once they feel safe to do that, and they're like, okay, this is what has happened, and of course, a lot of people do ask me for my opinion.
Yeah,
but I don't give it to them. I was like, I'm not here to give you my opinion. Yeah.
Which is also safe, because there are times where people, I'm sure, if someone asks for opinion, they would give it. But that can also be a bit dangerous, because you go away thinking, well, this is what my therapist told me to do, and this is what I'm just going to do, without really thinking about, is it what I want to do? So it's great that you actually don't intrude in that way, actually.
I mean, when we go to therapy, we are vulnerable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Aren't we? Right?
Yeah.
And then if you've got someone sitting in the expert chair saying, you need to do this, when we're vulnerable, we are going to lap up what he or she, and we're going to do it, and we're not going to action it. And that's dangerous, because if you don't understand what the methodology or the thoughts behind the said action is, then it's not going to be, you can't replicate it later, and you won't understand why you're doing it. And then you fall into that spiral again and again. So it's really important to understand what it is that we're thinking, how we're feeling about that thought, and the action or inaction that we're taking.
Right.
And that's the premise of CBT, thought, feeling, action.
And then if someone's sitting there, because sometimes it's like, do I need therapy? I'm not sure. Like when people come in, some people have never experienced, having to go to therapy, or not sure how do I know that it's therapy that I need? You know, what would be some of the signs? For me, it was quite clear because I was like, I've gone through so much, something that's so traumatic quite quickly. And I wanted to make sure I came out healthier mentally and stronger, and just also what my son saw as well. I didn't want him to feel my energy of sadness and not really be able to deal with it or express it in the right way. I was suppressing it. I was said, he's never going to see me cry. I don't want my son seeing me weeping. So I'd put him to bed, we would laugh, and I'd just be awake. I'd be lying there, not being able to switch off or sleep, or just crying because it was so sad. So I was like, I need an outlet that is healthy, that can help me. But some people don't really know if it's, you know, is it therapy or is it, I'm just sad today and just need to get on with life and just ignore it? Is there any signs that could help people to understand maybe this is something they need to explore?
I think therapy is something that everybody should do, regardless of how they're feeling. If it's sad, it's I liken it to taking a car for service. We do that every 6 months, 1 year. And why do we do that? Just to make sure everything's ticking along nicely and the car's not going to blow up, essentially, right? Why shouldn't therapy be the same? Sometimes we just need to have someone impartial so we can detox and say what we need to say, and then feel that catharsis of release and go, okay, all right, now I can continue. We can add to it with CBT to kind of find a reframe and think about things differently. We can combine it with coaching, NLP, for us to think about things differently through a linguistic perspective. But I think it's really essential that everybody does it. I mean, we talk to our women. Women talk to their girlfriends and we kind of rant and say this. Imagine doing it in a safe space with an impartial person who's not going to give you his or her opinion. Then you can work through whatever it is that you're going through and go, okay, I've got this. I can do this. And it's so empowering, really. But going back to when you can have therapy when you're feeling sad, you know, if you're seeking advice from your friends and family, and you've got so many opinions and you just don't know, it's like a helicopter, you know, being in a tailspin, like that. That's when we need to go and see someone who's professional for you to receive some grounding. To ask you the questions your best friends won't. Or give you some hard truths in the way that perhaps you haven't had delivered to you before. So that's the time to do it. You know, when we go through some sort of tragedy like a divorce or, you know, a bereavement, we do need to speak about our feelings. Because what happens when the clouds get heavy, Sharon? It just gets heavy and heavy, and it needs to rain. Sometimes we need to rain to a professional. Our friends are great, and they're, if we have friends, of course.
This is the right friends. The right friends, correct.
And if we haven't got the right friends, they might say things, and it's not congruent with us and our values. And because we're so desperate for some sort of something, and we might follow and heed their suggestions and advice, and it just turns into you go to a place that you really don't want to go to, and then think, oh, maybe I should have invested in therapy in the first place.
That's really good advice, actually. And I think the thing that I try to do is not have to, because you can have so many opinions, particularly around sensitive topics like this. A lot of it was like, stay, you have a son, just stay, which just didn't sit with my soul, because I want my son to be in a happy environment. Our home is peaceful, and I love that. And I'm navigating the reality of, you know, this is what it looks like to live in a peaceful environment. It's not how I wanted it to end, but I'm accepting that and lifting the shame. I was crippled with shame, actually. I was really embarrassed by the whole situation. Still am a little bit, to be honest. But I felt comfortable enough to know that I need to talk to someone about it to help me navigate and ease a lot of this like mental pain and physical pain that was happening. But I wanted to think about men, because I know with women, you know, we're quite good at vocalizing most of the time, or we have our girlfriends to have a chat with, and sometimes it's seen as like, we're having a glass of wine, but it is actually therapy because you're releasing. But with men, I don't know in terms of, are you seeing a lot of men accepting therapy? I know you said you position it as coaching, which I think works quite well for men, I'm sure. But are men more accepting to opening up to therapy? Are they exploring it more?
Men find it quite weird to talk about their feelings because they haven't been conditioned to do so. Right? From a young age, young girls are conditioned to be emotional and kind and play with their dollies, etc. Boys are, rough and tumble, climb trees, and boys don't cry and men don't cry and all that kind of stuff. And they get to a position where they want to cry. And once they find the right therapist, whomever he or she might be, and if he or she can ask the right questions in a safe manner, non-judgmental manner, that's when men open up. And there's so much trauma that they're carrying. This need to be perfect stems from childhood wounds. This need to be a certain way or perceived as a strong man, alpha man, comes from things that have happened or not happened as they were growing up. So men can talk, men do talk. It's whether or not they give themselves permission to do so. Sometimes it's a bit of cloak and dagger, you know. Some people come into my home office and they're like making sure nobody sees, and they sit down,
they feel,
and there's a lot of small talk.
Got it.
Before we kind of go in, because they need to feel comfortable. One thing I have found is that with men, they find it a little bit weird to speak to an outsider, a woman, no less, who's not their wife.
Yes, yeah.
And I get a lot of, why isn't my wife like this? Why doesn't she listen? And I say, it's not that she isn't listening. It's about understanding and your perhaps inability or your thought that you don't need to share. Women like information, and with the information they make deductions and inferences. But if you don't give any information, she's going to make assumptions and presumptions. And that's what men typically don't like from their partners.
Okay, that's so interesting. And have you had like wives recommend that their husbands come to you? Yeah, you do?
100%.
Oh, right.
Because they don't find me threatening.
Yeah, because that would always, that could be a thing, I can imagine.
You know, I work from my home office and I work in the corporate. So when they come to my home office, they're sat on the sofa and they just can be unapologetically them. And when I ask them questions, they just tend to open up, because initially it's like,
I can imagine.
And the first question I ask them is, do you want to be here?
Good point.
Do you want to be here?
Yeah.
Not really.
Oh.
Okay, so why are you here? Because my wife said. Okay. I can tell you what I do.
Right.
I can share how I can help you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome to listen. If you don't want to progress thereafter, you're very welcome to leave.
Right.
So I'm very blunt.
Yeah,
I'm not here to sugarcoat.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you to help yourself, only if you're open to it.
Yeah.
If there isn't an opening, there's no
point.
way that I can support anybody. And men like straight talk.
Yeah.
Right? I give it to them.
Good.
And when I give it to them, they're like, this is different from how my wife talks to me. Right? Not to say that I don't speak to my husband like this, right? But it's just, you know, different strokes, different folks. You've got to adapt the way you speak to people so you can get the results.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's fantastic. Because I had an episode with a child psychologist, because obviously I'm raising a young boy to be a man. I say this a lot, but I am mindful of that as well, because the narrative starts from home at a young age, right? You're a boy, you don't cry. You're a boy, you have to be strong. So I'm very mindful not to use that language. So, you know, I want him to feel vulnerable and be balanced in his emotions as well. Yes, you might be upset about something, but how do we deal with you talking about it? Or there's times where we're rolling on the floor and play fighting because he needs to release that, you know, that energy. He's a young boy, and that's okay as well. But I just realized how much it can definitely trickle all the way through to adulthood and frame your perception, or not being able to vocalize when there's trauma, if your heart is broken, or, you know, you've dated someone and she's upset you. So I think it's so important. That's why I asked about men, because I want to know, you know, are men being more open to this type of help? Yeah.
I think because there are more men's groups. And there are more men talking about their feelings, being or touching into their femininity. It's becoming more accepted, because not all men are stoic. Men do have feelings, of course, but in the younger years, I have a son myself. So what I do is I talk to him about how he's feeling, what he thinks about certain topic areas. Then I introduce male characters into his life who aren't afraid to kind of say, well, I didn't like this because of this, and this made me, because we absorb and observe the people around us, right?
Yeah.
And once we feel comfortable with the people around us, it becomes normal to talk about these things.
Correct.
It's not, it's not like this is what girls do, this is what boys do. It's not an archetype. It becomes, everybody should be talking about how they feel and talk about injustices and not just kind of swallow it and then blow up and punch.
And this is because it can come out in different ways, right? Which we don't understand, or that child would just be seen as aggressive or naughty without really knowing what's kind of deep rooted.
So we have to exercise empathy, not just with children, with ourselves.
For sure.
And self-compassion. And we don't tend to do that.
No. And why is that, do you think, actually? Because I'm learning to do more of that. Everyone was like, you have to be kind to yourself in this season. I didn't even know what that meant.
Exactly.
I was like, I just need to be able to raise my kid, go to work. And I was not being kind to myself at all. If anything, I blocked any thought around that. But I couldn't really understand why I would do that, because it is a time where I should actually be, gentle on myself. But I wasn't doing that.
We have voices in our heads.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And those voices are typically from the people who raised us, our parents.
Oh, my goodness, Tess.
Yeah. So even for me, sometimes when I'm thinking something, I'm like, whose voice is that?
Interesting.
The choices that I make, I don't make. Who is influencing me? And that just trickles through into adulthood.
Okay.
And when we say you need to be kind to yourself, it's about not listening to those voices from yesterday or yesteryear, or if we do listen to them, challenging it. Why am I thinking like that?
Right.
Why should I do that? Well, how is it going to serve me? What value is it going to add?
Right. Yeah.
The value piece is really important because when our parents raised us, most of us, it's because they had specific values and beliefs.
True.
It doesn't mean that it needs to be upheld right now.
Yep.
And this is a shame bit that comes into it.
Yeah.
So with things around divorce or losing a job or whatever it might be, this shame is because, you should have been better and you should have been more accommodating as a woman, and, what kind of woman dresses like this and goes out like that. These are the voices from our archetypes from way back when.
Yeah.
We need to dismantle that, because when somebody practices infidelity, it's a choice. It's a choice. And it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's a choice, and it's seldom to do with the person that they are cheating on.
Right.
It's more about them and what they're feeling like a deficit or a gap.
Right. Okay.
Now, if they don't talk about it, if they don't share, or it's not delivered in a way that other party understands what's going on, then who do we assign blame to?
Yeah. I shifted when you said that word because it's close to home, but also I'm also learning about it. I mean, it's very on face values. Okay, someone's done this to you, but there's usually a lot more to it. Actually, that type of behaviour, usually there's a lot more to unpack, and sometimes you need a bit of grace to really figure out why that person's acted in that way. But I think it takes a certain person to be able to do that as well.
And sometimes we may never understand their motivations.
Yeah.
Look, everyone gets married not to get divorced.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
We have this idea we'll get married and we'll have a happily ever after. But the reality of it is that's when the hard work starts.
True.
Once you get married.
Yes.
Right?
But we're not taught that as well. Well, in our community, we're not taught that, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We see our mothers just accepting.
Correct.
Right? Our aunties just accepting and not challenging. And there's a huddle of women saying, well, our husband's this, okay. And then the men have their own huddle talking about whatever it is. And never the two shall meet, right? But they go home together and they just perpetuate what they saw their grandmothers and the grandmothers before until now.
Yeah.
Okay? We have a choice and we have a voice, and we know when something feels uncomfortable. And some of us, the courageous ones, right, say, no, this is unacceptable because it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Other ladies who haven't got that voice, they continue on this trajectory, feeling upset and vulnerable, thinking, this is it, this is
the
my
norm.
life.
Oh, gosh.
And it's very sad. And what I try to do with my men and my ladies is give them the platform just to work through all of these thoughts without any shame, right? From a cultural perspective, I'm Asian. I grew up with a black community from East London. I can understand the cultural nuances.
Yeah.
I can empathize. I get it. But I'm also here from a Western perspective that we have a choice.
Yeah.
We don't have to accept everything that is given to us. Do you like kiwis?
No.
Right. If I gave you a kiwi, would you eat it?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
Yeah.
Now, if everyone is eating kiwis and your mum, way back, and you have to eat it because auntie's going to tell you, what do? You eat the kiwi. Right.
Yeah.
So what we need to try and do is exercise our choice, make us feel empowered by the choices that we make and not feel shamed by it. And also by not feeling shamed, changing the narrative around us.
Yeah. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do. Tess, you've touched on so much. I'm literally like, okay, I need to take this away. I need to take this away. And this is what I love about speaking with professionals, because I learn so much. And I know, obviously, the DXB community will take so much from it as well.
Thank you.
You're doing great things. It's such... it's such a blessing, I think, to be able to have a heart of serving, because not a lot of people can, and do it in a way that is so authentic, because it's so tough. I mean, life is hard and you're dealing with people's emotions. It's very sensitive as well, but I can tell that you're passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, I absolutely love what I do. And, I always say that the one thing I want to leave as my legacy is that I was able to help.
Yeah.
And that's all I want, to be known as somebody who truly cared and gave her all to help in service. That's all I want. So if there's just one person that I've touched and helps to support them to make the choice to empower them, I will go to heaven feeling happy.
Feeling happy. Thank you so much. You're such a beautiful soul. Just your whole energy. I'm like, whoa, I feel like I've had a therapy session. So thank you.
Thank you.
And so if people wanted to kind of learn more about you or learn about what you do, what's the easiest place to find?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Tess Pereira, and also on Instagram,
Fantastic.
Tess Pereira, psychologist coach. So send me a DM if you want some support, and if I can, I will. And that's what I live by. If I can, I will.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you.
Let's Talk DXB. Real conversations by real people.